I'd like to quickly walk you through two videos here explaining to you the parents' role in the fund development for Valley Fellowship Christian Academy. Go with me as I go through these. We'll have two videos and then there'll be two supplemental videos that will help you to see what you can do to help VFCA in the process of raising the funds that are needed in order to develop the school. Let's begin now. We want to lay the foundation. We want to lay a solid foundation for what we want to accomplish here, and we're going to begin by putting down a biblical foundation for money. The first thing we need to understand is what is God's economy concerning money. It would be very easy, because God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, it would be very easy for him to just take the money that we need and deposit it into a bank account, and we'd be able to write a check and we'd be done. But that's not how God works. It's not how he's ever worked. He put the coin in a fish's mouth one time, but most of the time he puts the money that's needed in somebody else's pocket. And we need to understand God's economy, because that's how he passes the blessing around. He gives to one person who gives to something else so that two people might be blessed instead of one. So we have to understand God's economy. Second thing is that we have to be found to be good biblical stewards. When I walked onto the campus at VFCA, first thing I noticed was that they had utilized every square inch of space. The good thing about using every square inch of space is that they found themselves to be good biblical stewards. Jesus said that if a man is found faithful in little things, he should be given big things. 28 years of being found faithful in all the little things, utilizing every square inch of space, getting the most, getting the best use out of the smallest amount of space, to do the maximum amount of things, is good biblical stewardship. They've done a great job of training godly leaders. And training godly leaders has always been God's economy. He's always been interested in raising up another generation of people who will stand for him and he can work through to reach the world. Faithful in little things. Do I need to say anything more about that? It's been so obvious that VFCA has been faithful in little things. If I had time, I'd take you through 1 Chronicles chapter 29, and we would see the most important thing that we're getting ready to talk about here, and that was when David took up the offering to build the temple. And he passed that responsibility off to his son. But watching his exchange with the people and what they were involved in there is extremely important. And I'd highly recommend you go back and take a look at that passage in 1 Chronicles chapter 29 and see what David did and the praise and the honor that he gave to God. And then the praise that he gave to the people for their responsibility and their role in doing what they had done, and how unworthy they found themselves to be in the work of God. So it brings us to the next point, though, and that is that there are two keys to unlimited funds. When I think about David, he raised enough money on that day that they could nearly pay the American national debt today, and so that was a sizable offering. Was a big thing that they did. There's two keys to unlimited funds. Number one, must cultivate biblical relationships, because money always follows relationships. I'm going to talk about that a lot. Money always follows relationships. So it's important for us to, in the fundraising process, that we learn to develop biblical relationships, that we build strong biblical relationships with people. And the second thing is that we craft a compelling message, that we have a compelling message that the world wants to hear about what's happening at Valley Fellowship Christian Academy. So we're going to work on those two things today: cultivating a biblical relationships with other people, and crafting a compelling message. Remember, money always follows relationships. First thing that we're going to talk about is knowing, understanding, and presenting your school. This helps us to craft a compelling message. Who is VFCA? It's very important that you understand that. Who is VFCA? When I look around, when I walk on a campus, there's certain things that I recognize. In addition to being an incredible place of education, it's also a place that is careful in little things, like a lunch program. I mean, what other school has a chef on staff to be able to make sure the kids get a good lunch? That's faithful in little things. This is a spotless building. The grounds are spotless and immaculately cared for. Faithful in little things. That tells me that they can be trusted with big things. Who's VFCA? It's important in crafting our message that we understand who VFCA is. What hope does VFCA hold for the future? Well, we've demonstrated for 28 years that the community that we live in has a high demand and a high interest in providing a good quality education to raise up godly leaders to make a difference in the world. because we're outgrowing the facility. So what record does VFCA have of the past? Have an incredible record of the past 28 years of standing and raising godly leaders in a challenging community, but doing it with a record that is incredible. And so as we craft that compelling message, it's important that we understand what record that we have. We're going to be utilizing lots of resources to do that, including the community journal, Facebook, and several other things and places that will be demonstrating that record from the past. I see here a biblical passion. When I taught in a Christian school, taught in a Christian school in the 80s, I taught in a Christian school in the 90s. And when I started, and it was toward the end of the 80s, first part of the 90s, we started talking about biblical integration in the classroom. And I taught one of the first worldview classes to be taught at the high school level. And biblical passion is not just, and biblical integration is not just about having a Bible class or praying before you start your class or reading a verse of scripture. It is about allowing the Bible to superintend everything that's taught: English, math, science, social studies, communication skills. All those things revolve around a biblical passion. That's the fire that purges and makes the education valuable. I see VFCA as being a mission that's on a mission. It's a mission in that it does what it does, but it does it and then takes it someplace else and uses that to change the world somewhere else. A mission on a mission. Knowing and understanding presenting your school is extremely important for us to have that compelling message that makes a difference in creating a fundraising campaign that really accomplishes its goal. Once you notice this banner, you're going to see it a lot: partnering together to reach. It's important that the parents, the staff, the leadership, the administration, everybody that is touched by VFCA partners together to reach the goal. So what's the plan? Plan begins right here. True success in developing funding partners. Now notice it's funding partners over the long run lies in developing healthy biblical relationships. Healthy biblical relationships. Bob Vickers was a man I got a lot of training from early in my career, and he is constantly emphasizing how important healthy biblical relationships are, because funding's got to take place over a long period of time, not just immediate. Money always follows relationships, and here's the reasons why. Everything we do is about people. Everything that we do is about benefiting people, and everything that we do is about transforming people. You get the idea that money's about relationships, and then eternity is all about people. We're going to do 3 campaigns. The first one is a brick donation campaign. Our goal is to raise $200,000 through encouraging people to donate brick to the campaign. And we'll talk about what we're going to do with that in just a little bit. But notice here, we're not talking about a lot. We're talking about under 300 bricks, and we'll be able to reach that $200,000 goal. And we're going to show you some ways in which we can accomplish that in just a little bit. But the second campaign, and when I looked at the amount of money that needed to be raised, we saw roughly $600,000. So we decided we'd break it up into 3 campaigns. First one being the brick campaign. The next one being individual donation campaign. We're going to talk about 2 types of individual donations: recurring gifts and transformational gifts. And I'll talk about those at length toward the end of this video. And then corporate sponsorship, and that'll be what the next video will focus on: corporate sponsorships and some things that are associated with that. So we'll take a look at these 3 campaigns. The first one is the brick donation, and it involves either a 4x8 brick or an 8x8 brick, and we'll talk about those in just a second. Let's take a look at some frequently asked questions. Number 1, what is the brick plan? What are you doing with the fundraising about bricks? Well, here's the plan. Money follows relationships, right? Always. Money always follows relationships. So the purpose of the brick plan is that a person makes a donation, their name gets placed on a brick. That brick will be put on a pathway going up to and on a wall surrounding the flagpole. And at certain times, staff and school and students will leave the school, go out in that area, and they'll pray for the people whose names are on those bricks. Because it's all about relationships, and eternity is about relationships, and eternity is about people. And we want to develop a strong relationship with those who have given to help make it possible. So the purpose of the brick plans, not just to identify somebody as being a contributor, but to identify and pray for somebody who's been a contributor. Next thing is, what if I can donate a lower amount? And I'll show you some ways that you can do that in a supplemental video. But we've made it easy for people. Maybe they can't write a check for $500 all at once, but we've given them an opportunity to be able to make deposits toward that brick amount. And we've got a 4-month plan for the 4x8 brick, and we've got a 6-month plan for the 8x8 brick. So you need to get on the 6-month plan early. What is a replica brick? And you'll hear about replica brick. Well, a replica brick is exactly the brick that the person made the donation gets put in the pathway and the pathway and the wall. But it's a replica brick, and it's got felt pad on the bottom of it, and it's got a little engraved plaque on the top, reminding them that their donation was made to Valley Fellowship Christian Academy, and it can go on their fireplace or their mantle or their desk or someplace where they can remember to pray for us. They remember the gift that was made and the contribution that VFCA is making by raising up godly leaders. And so that replica brick is a reminder to them to pray for us. How easy is it to order? There's 2 ways. Number 1, you can order online, fill out an online order form. And number 2, you can pick up a brochure that has the order form on it. So it can either be ordered online or off of a brochure in person. And those brochures are always available at the church and school office. How large is the campaign? We're going to raise $200,000 in this campaign in a 6-month period of time. Individual donors. Let's talk about individual donors for a minute. There's 2 types of individual donors that we're looking for. Recurring donations. Recurring donations are extremely important. Let's talk about why recurring donations make a big difference in a capital campaign like this. It's been proven that the person who is going to write a single check for $4,000 will not give as much money as a person who writes 4 checks, 1 a quarter, for $1,000. Once a person's in the habit of giving, it's easier for them to give more. And they have compelling reason to give more. We have more of a relationship with them, and it builds and develops a relationship. Let's talk about a little bitty recurring donation thing that I saw one time that my wife and I got involved in, and I find it really to be fascinating. I met a woman when I first came to Alabama who had told me at that time that she and her daughter had made a decision to forego their weekly Tuesday trip to Starbucks and where they would buy a cup of coffee and a pastry, and they would sit in a Starbucks and they would talk about missions, and they would pray for people. And they said, well, we decided that what we were doing is we were spending money that we could have easily just saved and given to the cause that we were praying for. So what they did was they would take the $7 or $8 or $9 that they would typically spend on that Tuesday, and they would pool it together at the end of the month, and they would deposit it in a bank account, and then they would write a check to that mission for that amount of money. And that was kind of a fascinating little recurring donation. It amounted to somewhere between $800 and $900 over the course of a year. But that isn't where it stopped. See, I heard about it, went and shared it with my wife, so my wife and I started doing the same thing. And then we talked to other people about it, and they started doing it. And the couple the woman and her daughter that started this, they were sharing that with other people. And the result was that several $1,000s a year were being raised to go to a particular cause. So recurring donations are extremely important. It also opens your eyes and gets other people involved. Second type of donation that we want to talk about is transformational large one-time donations. And I'll give you some details about that in just a minute. But transformational donations are that gift that is of the size that it transforms the business, or not the business, but transforms the organization. It moves them to a different level. It gives them the capacity to be able to do some things that they weren't able to do before. Memorial donations. It's possible to give money in the name of somebody, or for because you were inspired by somebody, and memorial donations become important. Sometimes people give just because. We think that the reason why people give is because we have a need, and they recognize it and they want to give to that cause. But that's not always true. Sometimes it's just because they've decided that they're going to give, and we need to give people an opportunity to be able to give for their reasons, not always because of ours. Keep that in mind. People always give for their reasons, not because of ours. My message, the message that I see, may not move another person to give because they may have a different reason. So keep in mind that people always give for their reasons and not for ours. When we talk about the individual donor, there's three things that we need to keep in mind. And those three things are access, belief, and capacity. Do we have access to this person? You know, sometimes organizations get stumped and they stumble right here because they always think, well, if we had a major donor like Warren Buffett, well, who has access to Warren Buffett? So access is the first thing. We've got to think about the people that we know, that we have relationships with, because money always follows relationships. Who do we have access to? What relationships do those people have? Access is the first thing. Second thing is belief. We've got to have a belief. That person that we have access to also has to believe in the mission. If they don't believe in the mission, then it doesn't matter how much access that we have. They're not going to get behind that mission because they don't have a belief in the mission. And the last one is capacity. Now, keep this in mind. The person who can write a check for $50 knows other people who can write a check for $50. The person who can write a check for $5,000 knows other people who can write a check for $5,000. And the person who can write a check for $50,000 knows people who can write a check for $50,000. So we're looking at capacity. All gifts are important. They all matter. But some people have the capacity to be able to give transformational type gifts that actually revolutionize the work of that particular ministry. The next video that we get to, we're going to talk about corporate sponsorship and how important that is to our overall program.